Hi, friends. Here's some pro tips on negotiating in different venues. This will probably go into a future book at some point, but I may as well give it to you here up on Sales Gorilla. Um, so, what happens if you're being forced to negotiate at your client's head office? Is that a problem? My answer is no, it's not a problem at all. As a matter of fact, it's kind of nice because you're actually in their world, feeling their ambience, watching how their people work, spending time just watching the whole culture move, and then watch when they come in from their exhausting meetings and plunk themselves down in their chairs, going, sort of jabbering about what it is they got going on, and or trying to wipe it out of their mind so they can focus on you. So there's number one. It's not a bad thing at all. It's a good thing. As a matter of fact, it gives you some time to sort of get into a peaceful state before you walk in. Always arrive really early. Like I was always 20 minutes to a half an hour early for these big negotiation meetings with clients, and I just get myself into my peace state, compress my notes, boom, ready to go, anticipating everything that could go right or could go wrong, so I could close the deal if I was ready. There you go. Number two, they come into your building. So what's that like? Well, the only downside to it, okay, is that if there's a sensitive piece of information that comes up in the meeting and so says, can you pull that file? You can't say no. You're going to say no, you're in the building, right? But other than that, I don't think there's a problem. I actually think it's good. I closed arguably the largest flyer negotiation deal in the history of our company, believe it or not, in a small anteroom up on the executive floor, top floor of the building, just sort of circling the table, not really talking, but kind of half talking to my friend Steve Kosnick about converting $4 million a year annually with just a few small changes. And it's one of those situations where he was in the building for some meetings with his boss, and I got we've been working on this deal for ages, right? And it was percolating, it was ready. I'd done all my cost modeling. I knew it down to the cent how this thing had to work. And they just said, Steve's in a quiet area. Why don't you come up? I said, sure. What are you thinking? And sort of the thinking was, I think he's getting ready to close the deal. So when I walked in, I just sort of say, hey, how you doing? He says, good. He says, my guy's getting close. What do you think? I said, yeah, my guy's getting close. So we kind of walk around filling our little plates as we walk around this big buffet table, and he goes, I got a couple of numbers I can work with. I said, yeah, I got a couple of numbers you can work with. It was so funny. Years later, we laughed. It was so funny because we both wanted the deal. We both needed to get the deal done, and we got the deal done. So what else could happen? So you're on phone calls. So before we had Skype and before we had Zoom and all the rest of it, it was just like I would lock myself into like cafe rooms and just spread my world around me to do negotiations that way. And this is kind of interesting because in this scenario, you always want to initiate the call. There's nothing worse than having a customer call you out of the blue saying, I'm ready to negotiate now, and your mind isn't there. You actually want to have your mind prepared and force them into the present. It's hard. And that's when you have an advantage. As long as you got everything around you. By the way, have a note taker with you all the time. When you go to these important sessions, always have a note taker with you, unless you get called up in a meeting like I did with Steve, right? It's like, and by the way, that deal was so perfect it never got changed for the next 7 years. That's how perfectly we landed that baby. So that ended up being about a $30 million deal that rolled over time. What's the next one? Negotiating in a place that is outside of both of your head offices. You could be sitting over at lunch. Well, I actually enjoy this. I think it's fun because you're in a place that's neutral. The only thing can happen is you got people moving around a room, and that can sometimes change the directions of people's eyes, or you got a waiter that that comes over and takes your order and that kind of stuff, and that kind of takes you out of your rhythm a little bit. Is there a place where I don't want to negotiate? Well, I can only really think of one. It's in a phone booth swinging a cat. It's really noisy in there. Quite seriously, the only bad thing about negotiating anywhere is you're dealing with a high level of noise, because words and that body movement, your body language, get distorted slightly. And words that are distorted slightly are not good. That's why, after all these things are over, control the contract, control the post-note um, conversation. Make sure you get that summary down and you send it over to the other side. If they see anything wrong, they're going to send it back. So those are my thoughts, and I hope you take it all into account. You know, you could end up on an airplane one time doing a deal. It's the craziest thing in the world. I mean, you got to be prepared for everything. If you can't get the deal done, get most of it done. In other words, get it so close that when the person gets off the plane, say, I'll have my people call your people. Yeah, we'll be ready to go. We just got to clean up one or two little things, and I think are you ready to sign up? Yeah. If you have documentation with you and you feel good about the deal, sign it on the plane. Who cares? Who cares? Get it done. You giddy up.